family. My mom and dad grew up in Caroline County, and as did their parents. So definitely an Eastern Shore native, born and raised in Easton, a good old when it was Easton Memorial Hospital, and stayed in Easton until I was 16, and went off and had a figure skating career. So I've had quite a path to get me back here. But I did compete nationally in ice dancing, and then taught for many years and did some ice shows and got to travel to Japan and spend some time there, and then decided to leave the circus, so to speak, when my husband decided to propose to me. But I was certainly blessed to be able to come back when there was an opportunity to buy a local business. It was mailboxes, etc. We've since changed the name to Ship and Print Place a couple of years ago. So my husband and I own and operate that together. And, the economy was really, really bad. And my dad, well, he's retired now, but was a CPA for 40 years. So I inherited his love of numbers, or obsession with numbers, and felt that with my small business background that they needed somebody on the county council 4 years ago to really be able to analyze that budget and instill that you don't spend more than you take in, and that there's a lot of nice to haves, and setting priorities, making sure that the things that get funded are the ones that are the responsibilities of government, and the other ones nice to have, but you have to remember that it's taxpayer money, and that they should I think they should be making those decisions on that. And I felt like, being that I meet a payroll every day and do the budget and have to meet my expenses as I do at home, and I hope that other people do that at home and in their businesses, that was what was missing from the council 4 years ago with that. And I think that I've had a lot of influence over the last 4 years. Well, I think that the greatest accomplishment of this current council is what we accomplished with, I'm not going to say no money, but a budget that used to be $86 million that was down to the lower 60s my first year in office, and setting those priorities, making very difficult cuts on the county side. We had to make painful cuts to the school budget as well, which only lasted for 1 year. We can talk more about maintenance about that a little later. But we also we raised one tax that first year, recordation tax, which kind of hit real estate, but we still have the lowest property tax in the state, lowest income tax in the state. And then there had been, over the 2 years before I was in, 17 million used in fund balance, which of course was not sustainable. So that first year in office, we made cuts on the county side, cuts 4% to the schools, and a little bit of fund balance, about $1.5 million, and then a small tax increase in real estate. And we got there. The second year was much more challenging because the state, well, of course, they kept passing down other spending mandates, and they've had taken away our highway user revenues, which is about $2 million, all of those things. And so in year two, maintenance of effort passed, which is a guaranteed funding level for the school systems. And look, I've got 2 boys, one's just graduated last year, and one's in the school system, so it's really important. But the problem is there's an escalator in it, but not a deflation. So if the revenues drop by a certain amount, it doesn't matter. The schools get the same level of funding. And I understand that any department needs stability, but there's got to be a way to be able to work with that. And what's, I guess, a little frustrating is that there are people who will say we have the lowest education effort in the state, but it's a formula that the state created years ago, and we have some very high property values. That doesn't equate into an ability to pay necessarily. So you have a few very high value properties that skew our whole system, and yet if you look at our income tax and our median household income, it's 17% below the state average. We still have over 50% of our kids on free and reduced meal lunches, and yet people say that we're this wealthy county. Yeah, but there's some. But a lot of those wealthy people are retired and not paying income tax, or they're living elsewhere 6 months in a day and are dropping off our income tax rolls. So when you look at the income tax and those levels, I feel it's a flawed formula. So the second year, picking up on that, we we were forced to break a property tax cap and to give back the $1.9 million to the school. We raised the property tax exactly so that we would gain $1.9 million, and then raise the income tax rate from 2.25 to 2.4 because teacher pensions were also passed down. So we had a double whammy that year. So it wasn't just the maintenance of effort, and the teacher pensions grows every year. So this year is around $750,000, and it's going to go up every year. So the tax increase that, believe me, you've got, I always joke, 4.5 Republicans sitting on the council. You have 5 very conservative people sitting there that had to raise taxes a few years ago to pay for spending mandates that the state passed down. You know, we had no choice. There was no more room in the budget to cut the county side. It wasn't fair. I mean, we have to have our public safety. We've got to have our deputies out there. We've got to have our EMT workers. And when I first came on the council and we were making those really, really tough cuts, the gentleman who was in charge of permits and inspections retired. We opted not to replace him. Building permits were down. I mean, 8 years ago, there was 200. And I'm talking about full building permits, not just the smaller ones. We're down to 18. So we felt like, you know what, we can do this. We can merge these departments while things are, of course, don't want them to have that just 18 building permits a year, but we thought we could do that. In hindsight, maybe that was a mistake. But I think now there are issues in that department, and there's 2 things that we're doing. Number one is we have added a supervisor level to the budget this year. We're going to be getting a work group together in the next couple of weeks of interested stakeholders, builders, architects, people to come in, and we need to talk with them and say, we know there's a problem. What do you want this supervisor to accomplish? And so we're not just going to make the decision all by ourselves. Obviously, we'll do the hiring, but we're going to hear from the people who are using that department, and we're going to take that feedback and apply it to the job description. It will be someone from outside to come in, to be able to be a third party, to come in and identify what's wrong in that department. Should it have been done years ago? Probably. We didn't have any money to do it. I think most economic development is going to end up probably right where we're sitting in the town of Easton. Certainly in the municipalities, it's going to be very, very little companies that are going to locate outside of Easton St. Michael. It's probably not going to have anything that's going to locate in Oxford. So while we want to sell Talbot County, I agree, as a whole, as far as where they're going to be, the towns have to be on board as well, and we really need to have a good relationship and working together with our municipalities. I think a great example of something that we've done this year is that Easton did recognize that there's a company that's here, and they have a personal property tax. I pay it in my business on manufacturing. Now, I don't think mine's manufacturing. My personal property tax for the store is another category, but personal property tax on manufacturing equipment. So Easton decided to eliminate that, which I believe was about a $350,000 hit to their budget, and they asked Talbot County if we could help them out the first year, and we put $150,000 into the budget to supplement Easton's budget this year of $100,000. That's a perfect example of partnering with the towns. We all work really hard, and I've been very spoiled by the group that I've served with. I love them dearly, but I research stuff. I may feel a certain way about an issue, and your gut's a good barometer, but I always look for the facts, and you cannot ignore those when you see facts in front of you. And I research things ad nauseum. And so when I'm making a decision on an issue, that you can feel very comfortable that it's not just, my heart or my gut. You listen to that, but you have to temper that with what the truth is sometimes. And sometimes people don't want to hear the truth. And I've always made decisions for the best interests of the majority of Talbot County citizens. I don't feel like I owe anything to one particular group. I want the groups to work together to have the best Talbot County that we have, and I think that I've done a good job doing that, and I would love to continue doing that for another 4 or 8 or 12 years, however long Talbot County will have me.
Are you having fun? Do you have fun?